All right. This video is going to be a bit of a tough love message to one Rand Campbell. As some of you may recall, a while back I did a video where I suggested that it might be possible that the persona that we see on YouTube as Rand Campbell, or known as Randcam Campbell, may be as sort of aggressive and assertive and sometimes abusive as he is as a result of some adverse childhood trauma, adverse childhood experience that he had suffered that has, manifested itself, probably in his entire life with some of his, what might be described as dysfunctional behavior. And I took some heat for that video from some people feeling like I was giving him an excuse, giving him an out. Now, interestingly enough, one person I didn't really get whoops, sorry. Let's fix that. One person I didn't get a lot of grief from over that video was Rand himself. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that he sort of took the video in the manner in which it was meant, that he didn't take it like I was attacking him in some way. The grief that I got from other people for that video was they were basically saying I was giving him an excuse, that I was excusing his behavior, and that wasn't, that wasn't cool. Now, I'm not doing that. I don't think any of that is an excuse. It most certainly, at least, is not an excuse once that's been brought to a person's attention. So I'm kind of the mindset that, the belief that we can have adverse childhood experience, and that can actually color the way we see the world. In fact, if it happens early enough and it's traumatic enough, I believe that it forms hardwired connections in the brain. And some of these things can be very, very difficult to overcome. For instance, if we don't sort of develop empathy within the first few years through the research that I've seen on mirror neurons and things like that, it may even be irreversible. Now, I don't think that's happened in Rand's case because he does every once in a while exhibit the capability of empathizing and feeling compassion for people. But I think what happens is, we can go through our lives and not realize that that's a driving factor. It's a driving force behind us. Once it's brought to our attention that that's a possibility, however, as a mature adult person, the onus then is on that person to say, I wonder if this could be true, to be introspective, to look at how they're being perceived by other people, to look at their actions, and to seek counseling or seek some sort of help to make sure that that's not actually true. And the excuses, if they were excuses before, certainly disappear at that point, right? It would be sort of like if you were extremely unhealthy for some reason, and you had these, these lifestyle choices were part of the norm for your environment, your culture, and you didn't realize it, and then somebody were to come along and educate you and say, hey, by the way that you eat and the things that you do are very, very unhealthy. Here's why. Well, those excuses then go away at that point. From then on, you are in the driver's seat for your own health, right? Your own choices from that point on. And so that's why this message is going to be a message of tough love for Rand Campbell. Because I've watched a few of his videos recently, and I haven't watched them in entirety, partially because some of them are 5-hour-long hangouts, and I just haven't got that kind of patience or time. But I've watched a few, and here's what I'm seeing. Rand, this is directed at you. There's a lot of really strange AC/DC type behavior. We're going on a lot of extremes. There's a lot of very aggressive behavior, a lot of outright mocking and name calling and abusive behavior. You're being abusive towards other people. And then there will be a sort of an inverse of that. And then there will be, I'm begging for forgiveness, and I'm expressing love, and I'm feeling love, and I'm expressing, for instance, a good example is, I don't want that person to be saved. I don't want that person in heaven with me later. Of course I want that person saved. Of course I would like nothing more than to turn around and see Alex Botten in heaven with me. So there's a lot of very, very, okay. Now, as many of you know, and Rand, if you don't know, my own father was diagnosed bipolar, and I went through a lot of these cycles with him. Severe depression, where I was the one propping him up, telling him that life is worth living, Just find, go after the things you love, be hedonistic if you need to, just, embrace life. And then when he would climb to the manic phase, he would be extremely aggressive, extremely abusive towards me, towards other people, illusions of grandeur, you name it. And I'm seeing a lot of this behavior in you, Ran. I'm not saying that you're bipolar. Obviously, I'm not qualified to make that diagnosis, but I am seeing these same behaviors, right? So you've made your apology video. And then you've made other videos where you've said, I want to drop the YouTube persona, and I just want to be just like anyone else trying to figure out what life is all about. And I've noticed you blamed a lot of your behavior on this YouTube persona. Now, it's one thing to point that out in other people and say, hey, listen, I don't think you're being genuine. I think you are wearing a disguise, a YouTube mask, if you will. But it's another thing for you to do it, to treat people poorly and then say, oh, that's just the status quo here on YouTube, isn't it? No. Who you portray on YouTube is who we believe you are. We have no way of knowing anything else. If you really want to be a genuine person, then you be a genuine person. And understand that however you portray yourself on YouTube that's the way people on YouTube are going to see you. That's the only evidence we have. You don't get to blame that on a YouTube persona. If you want to be genuine, be genuine. But that also means you're going to have to, if you want to be genuine, you've got to drop the mocking and the name calling, this talking about, oh, look at all these demons gathered here in this hangout, calling people demons, right? I mean, really, the interesting thing is, you might say, hey, listen, Mike, as an atheist, you don't get to use scripture to criticize or critique my behavior. Well, I'm a non-believer and I don't believe in scripture. However, I can convict you by your own ideology. In other words, if you say this is what you believe in, you say you believe in Christianity, then all I've got to do is look at, it's great because there's a manual, right, for Christianity. You've got it laid right out there. I can look and say, well, geez, Ran, I thought you're supposed to love your enemies, and I thought you're supposed to treat them with kindness. I thought you were supposed to be meek, and you're being none of those things. So I can convict you based on that. In some ways, I think you're not in control of your abusive behavior, and that's kind of what scares me. And the reason I say that is because I see the peaks and the valleys. I see you dropping down into these deep, deep lows. And that's a cycle that I think is dangerous. When you made your Wrath of Ran video, maybe you need to watch that video again, Ran. It is rife with illusions of grandeur, talking about how you are standing between the Father and the atheist, and how you are doing it to protect them, to protect the atheist from the Father, and so you can feel that wrath. Ran, that's not rational. That's not grounded. That is illusions of grandeur. And I've been witness to this. I know what this looks like, right? And then to have another video where you say, I feel your pain or your sorrow. I can't remember what the name of the video was now. And I couldn't really watch that video because you put the music in there and I couldn't see your lips move because you got a funny image going on and the audio of your voice is a little bit too quiet, but I could sort of get the gist that it was another one of these touchy-feely videos, like the video you made about love. And again, these peaks and valleys don't speak well. You're not giving a consistent message. This is not consistency here, right? I've made some notes. You'll have to excuse me. On the Rejecting Ran video, you talked about, you've made your apology, and your subtitle to that video was, They Hated Me First. And it seems to me that you've made an apology expecting everyone to just take you at your word. And I've got to tell you a little something about apologies, Ran. Tough love time again here. You don't just get to say, I'm sorry I did that, and everybody switches on a dime. Apologies are about action. Anybody can say, I'm sorry. When you apologize to somebody, the first thing they're doing is watching your next moves. And depending on, you could think of it like a bank account, okay? I'd like you to think about accepting apologies, giving apologies, doing damage, demonizing people as a bank account. And you've been making a lot of withdrawals with certain people for quite some time. And I don't care what they've done to you. This isn't about that right now, because you don't really have a soapbox to stand on when you are doing the turnabout is fair play thing, right? You've got to you've got to walk the Christian walk. Or in my case, I would say, you've got to you've got to do the right thing. You've got to walk the high road and let the other people wallow around in the gutter. Then you've got a position to stand from. But when you jump in the gutter with them, you lose that credibility. But think of it like a bank account. You've been making a lot of withdrawals for quite some time. You're into your overdraft. When you make an apology, it's kind of like an IOU. It doesn't cover the overdraft. You're just saying, hey, listen, I'm gonna pay this back. I'm gonna pay it forward. I'm gonna work towards this, etc. The next thing you got to do is you got to start making deposits. You've got to be positive, affirming, having hangouts with people where you treat them with dignity and respect, and you really hear them out instead of telling them what they think. Right? This is something I watched you do recently with Galaxy Dreams. He kept telling her what she meant when she said something and what she thought. And I know you're one of these guys who's got to be in control all the time, Rand, but you've got to be more receptive to people. Right? These are withdrawals. Those are all withdrawals from that bank account. Right? So you got to start making deposits. You got to start and you got to be doing it consistently. You got to treat people well, and you got to treat people well consistently, and you got to treat people with respect, and you got to listen when they talk, and you got to not make up what they're saying. You got to not decide for people what they mean. Right? When people reject you, you got to not say, oh, what you're really rejecting is Christ. No, they're rejecting the things that you've done, Rand. You've got to own that. And when you do that, you bring that balance, whatever the deficit was, whatever the overdraft was, that's how much deposits you've got to make before you break even, before people will actually accept that IOU, before people will actually accept that apology. Apologies are empty. They're IOUs. There's work to be done when you really want to make an apology. When you want to make a heartfelt apology, there's work to be done. Let me consult my notes once again. Because you went on and said things like you said it's the world we live in where someone just makes an apology and everybody just rejects it. This is you not taking ownership for the things that you've done in the past. The reason why you had to make an apology in the first place. And again, when you walk the high road, then you can critique what other people are doing. But as soon as you jump into the ditch with them, you're no better than they are. Right? See, I've noticed in other videos and other captions and in comment sections, you still continue to talk about, look at these demons gathered here. These people are demons. You've continued to mock other people. You've continued to tell other people what they're thinking and what they mean when they say something. Those are all withdrawals. Okay, let's throw away the notes. So I think you got to start making some deposits if you really mean those things to be heartfelt. And personally, Ran, I think the excuses are over. I know you had a tough childhood and it's horrible. And I'd be the first guy there to have a talk with you about that and give you my undivided attention, my utmost sympathy and empathy for you as a child, for the young Ran and what happened to you. Because obviously, from what I understand, it was horrific and it shouldn't have happened. And you didn't deserve that. You deserved better than that. However, as the adult Ran, you now have had it pointed out to you that this may be causal in some of the behaviors and some of the dysfunction you've exhibited as an adult. And so the adult Ran is now responsible to take that and do something with it. Maybe I'm full of shit. I could be wrong about the whole thing. However, it's still, the onus is still on you to look at how you're being received by people and ask yourself if there's some reason and if there's something to this. I mean, you know that you had adverse childhood experience, so check that box. We know that adverse childhood experience causes adult dysfunction. You can check that box. We know you're not received well by some people. Quite often, even other fellow Christians. We can check that box. So, I would say all indications point towards that. It's on you now. You don't get to make any more excuses about your past. This is about the other direction, right? This is about the future. This is about Rand becoming the best Rand he possibly can be. And to the people who would continually sort of say, hey, listen, Mike, this is a lost cause. This guy's making excuses. You're falling for his excuses. Guilty as charged. I'm a humanitarian, right? And so I would make every attempt until I think that it's a complete lost cause, that nothing can be done. And really, in some ways, there's no skin in the game for me. This is all, electrons flying around, right? I'm just trying to reach out. I would like to see a little bit more of that in the community in general, but it definitely has to be done in a tough love manner. And I appreciate people pointing that out to me, that you can't let him continually get away with it. And for me, it stops here. This is the, you know what an intervention is, right, Ran? That's when people say, listen, if you don't change your behavior, we can no longer have a relationship. We don't really have a relationship, but this is it for me. This is where I say, you got to do something about this. And if you do, I'd be willing to help you. And if you don't, well, we're done here, right? Because I can't sort of condone your behavior by continuing, right? That's what that would be doing. That would be me, what's the damn word? I was going to say ableizing. I can't think of the word at the moment. But anyway, it would be me promoting this, that's okay for you to continue doing those things, right? And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So take it for what you will, but I would suggest being a little introspective, quietening down the automatic knee-jerk response. When someone says something, Rand's got to jump in and control. I got to jump in and control. You do this a lot. I think you know it. You have a need to control. It's time to quieten down that machine for a little bit. Maybe look through. You may not even have to watch your own videos. You could just look through your video catalog and see the nature of your videos for the last little while, right? These are manic depressive videos. Whether or not you actually have bipolar disorder, I don't know. But that's the pattern of these videos. And I think if you look at that introspectively in a quiet moment and ask yourself, is this really indicative of a completely clear and healthy intellect? I think you might find that Rand needs some help. And whether that is some counseling, whether that's just friendship, or whether that's just introspection and a recognition on your part that what you're doing isn't working, right? Clearly what you're doing isn't working. And all these battles you're fighting, that video that you made where you talked about fighting all these battles and you're hitting them in the back of the head with sledgehammers and take up a sword and take shots. I know you're not willing to give any and all that. That's all illusions of grandeur, right? I'm not saying any of this to attack your theology. I don't think any of that has got anything to do with your theology. So I'm going to leave it there because I could probably go on and on. If you want some help, Rand, contact me. I'd be more than willing to help. But this is on you. This is now your turn. This is Rand's deal to fix, right? You've got resources available. You can get help. I'm sure there are other people on the YouTube community that would be willing to help as well. There's also resources available to you, where you live, right? But you have to do it. Thanks very much for watching.